Our church recently started small group ministries, and one of the small groups that I belong to is so-called Young Professionals Small Group, basically designed for young adults. In its first session, our group leader, Marissa, brought up a really interesting topic that invited us to ponder over secular songs, like pop music, and try to find out some hidden message of God's love in it. How cool is that? So let me introduce a song to you this morning. Do you know the song, Who Cares? Anybody? It was released last year in 2018 and was written by Paul McCartney, who is renowned, world famous, right, as one of the legendary musicians, singer-songwriters in the 20th century with his band, the Beatles, right? So the song goes like this. 1, 2, 3. Who cares what the idiots say? Who cares what the idiots do? Who cares about the pain in your heart? Who cares about you? I do. Can you sing with me? 1, 2, 3. Who cares what the idiots say? Who cares? Who cares what the idiots do? Who cares? Who cares about the pain in your heart? Who cares about you? I do. Yep. And here is the following part of the song. This is because you are worth much more. It's a fact. You can be sure. There's no need to hide the love you've got inside. In his interview about the song, Paul said the song was written to inspire as many people as possible to stand up to bullying and negativity. His song is not necessarily Christian, but in this regard, I believe its underlying message sounds very relevant to the Christian virtue of love and care, in particular, which may be found in another Paul's story in the Bible. So, let's get back to the scripture. In today's Bible reading, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 7, here we found another Paul the Apostle. In his pastoral epistle to his dear friend Timothy, who was serving the church of Ephesus, Paul urged Christians, particularly in this chapter, to pray for all people with the same heart of God towards all people shown through Jesus Christ, who gave himself as a ransom for all. A renowned British New Testament scholar, James Dunn, calls us to pay more attention to Paul's request that was given with such great importance here in this biblical passage. He said, and I quote, "It developed an emphasis that had been integral to the gospel from the beginning. That is good news for all people, including sinners and not just righteous, and not only the Jew, but also all the Gentile." In verse 7, we see Paul describing himself as an apostle, a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and truth. He who used to be a Jewish intellectual and Roman citizen has now become a strong advocate of the mission toward the Gentiles. In the early Christianity, Paul had to fight against the notion of the older Jewish exclusivism. They literally believed the Jew were the only chosen people to be saved by God. We can find a glimpse of the controversy that surrounded the expansion of the Christian movement into Gentile communities in the ancient Mediterranean world throughout Paul's letter to the churches of Galatia. The necessity of circumcision mentioned in the Old Testament as a means of entering covenant relationship with the God of Israel. It's merely one example of the controversy. I'm not trying to unpack these puzzles at this time, but rather I would like to invite you to think about what this may imply to the Gentiles who may have totally different cultural backgrounds. We who are living in the 21st century may not be able to fully understand the circumstances in which the Apostle Paul had to vindicate the rights of non-Jewish Christians. But assumably, those believers among the Gentiles at that time may have struggled a lot as they got over all the obstacles to be accepted as a child of God. This sounds a little weird, doesn't it? At least that is not a Christian teaching that I have learned. As the Apostle Paul introduces the true gospel to us in today's scripture. Verse 4, God desires everyone to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. The Gentiles must have greatly appreciated all the efforts of the Apostle Paul. To them, Paul was obviously a person of caring heart to fulfill God's desire. Mother Teresa, also known as Saint Teresa of Calcutta, said this: "The good news is that God still loves the world through each one of you. You are God's good news, you are God's love in action." Mother Teresa knew that the best way of spreading the good news is our ministry of love and care. And the loving and caring heart poured upon Mother Teresa may have driven her to keep doing her ministry over there. We have so many good examples and role models who have such good caring hearts. Now, it's your turn. Please look around. There may be some people who are in need of love and care around us. Paul McCartney paid attention to an issue of bullying. The Apostle Paul recognized the need and passion of the Gentiles. And Mother Teresa dedicated her entire life to help those who were dying for hunger in Calcutta, India. Our church, Denville Community Church, already has wonderful ministries that involve good, caring hearts, such as the ASP, the Bridges Outreach, Community Food Bank, Family Promise, Country Home Service, and so on. To create peaceful and just communities, we may need to overcome the obstacles of intolerance and indifference. Please consider signing up and participating in those ministries in our church to help fulfill God's desire for all people. So, let me remind you of the song of Paul McCartney that was introduced at the beginning of this sermon. Here in his song, Paul asked, "Who cares about you?" and answered, "I do." Then, let me put it this way. Please imagine you are hearing God's whispering voice deep in your heart. And God asked, "Who cares about you? Who cares about them?" I do. For sure, God cares about you and me and everyone. Going one step further, I strongly believe God is inviting all of us today to say the same thing to our friends and neighbors, as well as those who are in need around us. Who cares? and we respond as a faith community with a caring heart. I do, and yes, we do.